million dollar, maybe the billion-dollar question. When's the best time to sell in Florida?
Well, we're realtors. You know what we're always going to say, but...
We're always going to say now,
yeah,
but not necessarily.
Not necessarily. We'll talk about that today.
Stay tuned. Okay, let's go through the seasons.
So, generally speaking, I always say the season starts October 1st. Because October is when, early October, things start to pick up.
Okay.
By September, October, we're well into, October, end of October, early November, we're well into season. By Thanksgiving, we are booming. I mean, that is the middle of season is, to me, I consider season, the height of season being Thanksgiving through New Year's Day. Then it's a little bit busier in January, February, and then it starts to taper off. And then the Monday after Easter, it is a mass exodus out of Sarasota. So if you're listing your house, ideally you want to list coming into season when most of the people are down here transacting properties. But with that being said, we still sold properties April, May, June, July, and August. So it's not like the market falls off a cliff and nothing sells during that time frame. I think you had 4 or 5 closings in August this year. So, you know, we're always,
September.
As realtors, we're always going to say, now's the time to sell, now's the time to sell. But if you're trying to time the market based on the season, that you would be trying to sell in November, December, January, February, and trying to avoid May, June, July, August. But we are still selling properties during those times of year. So,
Yeah.
like, you know, you'll see a lot of people pull their property off the market in April. Well, there's a couple things I'd say to that. First off, everybody can see you pulled it off the market. So even if you're going to wait until next year to list it, they're going to see that it was listed, it sat on the market for 4 months, nobody bought it, then you took it off during the off season and relisted it.
Which is truck goes by. Before we go on to times of year, because I want to address what you just said.
Sure.
So when you list a property, or I list a property, and it's not selling, or it's just slow moving, maybe it's priced high and you're chasing the market down, you list it too high, I mean, it's kind of,
Right.
you know. So sometimes, and I just did this with 2 of my listings, sometimes it's best to remove it.
Right.
And then
Reset it.
Relist it, and it shows 0 days on the market.
Right.
And the way to do that is if you relist it in-house, it has to be 60 days. I usually wait till 61 so that it resets to 0.
Right.
Now, if someone took over my listing and relisted it with another company, I believe it's 30 days.
Right.
Right, and it goes back to 0. But if you're within the 30 days or within the 60 days, it still shows, like in the MLS or Zillow, or wherever you're looking, it'll show active days on the market, which is the new listing,
Right.
right, with the current agent. But then underneath it'll show cumulative, which means the actual days on the market,
Right.
if it was listed with several agents.
Right,
so
but
that's the more accurate number.
But it still resets that cumulative days on market after the 60 days,
After
right?
60 days.
Right, after 60 days. But the thing is that the only person you're really capturing is an agent that's too lazy to click on one button on the history to look down and see the history. I mean, even on Zillow and Realtor.com, if you scroll down, you can see the history of when it was listed, went on and off the market. But it definitely does get a little bit more activity if it's reset to 0. With that being said, though, you can avoid all of that by just pricing it right. Like people are continually, you know, they have this notion, well, if I price it, you know, really high, I'm going to get a higher number. No, you're not. You're just not. The market is going to pay what the market pays. And at the end of the day, if you list it too high, the first 2 or 3 weeks to me,
critical.
That's your best opportunity to sell it. That's when you're going to get the most activity. That's when most people are going to be looking at it. It's a new listing. It shows as a new listing. But if you price it too high, all of those people immediately pass. We have been hearing from sellers sometimes, well, they can come with an offer.
I just heard that twice this week.
They're not going to come with an offer.
But think about it from the buyer's perspective, especially, well, it could be a brand new listing, but especially the ones that are sitting. Buyers are, number one, not inclined to see it if it's just priced way too high, and number 2, they're less inclined to write an offer because they don't want to insult the seller.
Well, but let's go back to your first point, though.
Okay.
Your first point is they're not going to see it. If I can afford an $800,000 property, and you're listing it at $1 million, but it's really only worth $800,000.
I'm not going to look at it.
I'm not going to even see it because my search criteria is not going to pull in those
Because
properties in the $1 million listing.
The buyer doesn't want to get all excited, and then they're just way off anyway.
Right.
And so they don't know just by looking at a listing that the seller will take 200,000 under.
Right.
They don't know that that's part of what we do is we talk to the agents and we get the feel for like their motivation, I guess you could say.
Right.
But let's get back to, that's a whole other topic.
Right.
Days on the market and pricing, we've done video on that, so please check out our Pricing Matters video, do's and don'ts of realtors. All those videos are in the playlist, so please check those out for detailed content about those topics. But back to the date, like the time of year. So to your point, I would say August and September are probably like the slower months to list and sell. But October really starts to ramp up in terms of activity and listings. But I think October is a sweet spot because the people that are waiting for January, February, March, April, the peak season, I guess, you're also competing with all those other people that have the same mentality. Right. So you're competing with more traffic, more people looking, but there's more people that are looky-loo and not serious buyers. So you're getting a whole mixed bag in season. Versus October, it's the lead up, and it's not as crowded here, so you get like better quality showings, I think.
Well, the people are more serious. I feel like, the people that are looking in those off season, like they're probably looking because they need to buy a house. They're moving here. They have
they're just more serious.
They're very serious about making a purchase. Whereas during the season, yes, you have serious buyers that are there, obviously, but you also have a lot of people that are just happen to be here on vacation or kicking the tires and are like, well, we could afford to buy $1 million condo, out near the beach, but unless we find our dream condo, we're not buying anything.
And that usually means they don't buy. I've heard that over and over again, and they're just sort of like, they don't need to buy, so the motivation is less, and especially on a property that's priced too high, they're even less inclined to write an offer. I mean, unless, of course, there's a small percentage of people that would, but it's not as many as I think some sellers have the mentality to think that it really might be. So pricing matters, staging matters, all the same things we talked about. Okay, let's get into January, February, March, April, because that was historically
the best time,
our peak season.
Yeah, and January, February, March, to me, like I always know, we're not taking any trips then. That's when we're going to be working.
We're right here.
You have to be, if you're a full-time agent, that's when you really have to be buckling in and putting hours in. And that's when you're going to do most of your business for the year, or at least, and maybe you're not, listing or selling the house then, but that's when you're going to make the contacts for the people that will be listing and selling it. So
got a doggy. Come on.
Yeah, come on. It's okay. Come on through.
It's a public park. And so we're gonna have more traffic. We're gonna have probably more showings on the properties, and that doesn't mean necessarily that you're priced well. I think it just means that there's more people here, more inclined to look at it. I would say, to summarize some of this, that Florida's not nearly as seasonal, real estate transactionally speaking, as it once was.
And certainly in the last 2 or 3 years, because of COVID, you saw big decreases in property values in some parts of the country. Florida, our market was booming, and most of the country was booming, but since COVID has tapered off, a lot of areas in the country have really had steep declines. I mean, the Midwest, on the West Coast, especially in California, huge declines.
New York and California.
Huge declines. We're not having that here. If anything, our market has stayed very stable after that big COVID rise, and really not much of a drop off on any of the pricing at all. So
I would say, again, to summarize, if it's the time for you and your family, maybe there's a death, maybe there's an expansion of the family with another baby on the way, divorce happens, life happens, and so as long as your property is priced well, we are just not as seasonal. We really aren't. And as a matter of fact, lots of people are here on summer vacation, they go away. I typically am around, and I'll try to go out of town once or twice, just like a quick weekend, just because it is so hot. But the people coming during the summer, they are serious because it is hot here.
It's hot. Well,
So, if they're coming, they are serious.
They're serious. The other thing we tend to find a little bit, and we're seeing a little bit more of, is the Europeans are on vacation June, July, and August. Over that holiday season. So you're seeing a little bit more activity of the European market coming into Florida too. So
we see them around the circle a lot. I said in the last video that I talked to a German couple. I hear through the restaurants in town different languages. I hear a lot of French. I hear English accents. We have a lot of UK population that have second homes here. I would say that's second to
I don't know.
It's close.
Yeah. I mean, U.S., Canada, probably the U.K., French, German. Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of that Western European market is definitely here for sure.
Right. We have, again, back to the point is that we have estate sales and things that happen in people's lives where right now is the time to sell. And listen, if you're not in a hurry to sell and you want to get to a certain price, and I say, listen, the market's not quite there yet, I'll be the first to tell you.
I'd rather you wait to list it than list it super high and it just sits for years and years and years. That doesn't
years and years.
I mean, or even months. I mean, if your house is sat on the market for 2 to 3 months, you seriously have to be questioning that isn't. You and I don't tell people the pricing. What we do is
have a conversation.
We have a conversation. We're going to tell you what we think the market is going to bear, but the market is going to tell you.
Yeah.
If you've been on the market for 3 months, the market is telling you it's priced too high.
Honestly, if you list a property, if you list your home, and the first 2 weeks there's only 1 or 2 showings, like that's indicative of probably being priced too high or something wrong. Usually it's all price driven. Control the controllables.
Yeah, but even in the properties that are spectacular, I mean, I think that if your condo is worth $1.5 million and you're listing it at $2.2 million, nobody's going to come look at it. And even if they do, they're still going to walk in, and the first thing they and their agents are going to do is look at what the sales have been around there. If nothing around you is selling for that price, the initial question is, well, what makes your property so unique or so different than everything else that's sold around you? And unless you can say, well, our property, our condo is double the size or triple the size of all these other condos that sold, you really don't have any reason to be charging that extra premium that nobody's going to pay it.
And buyers are very savvy. They're very smart. We have everything at their fingertips online with Zillow, Realtor.com, and all these other sites. So, but just like a lot of moving parts to it, and it's also like dependent upon how many are listed in your complex or your community at the time. And that can change very quickly, as we've seen it in this market in this year for 2023. It can change very quickly. So you could list a property today and if you priced really well, and then all of a sudden we get a new one that comes up or one pending, and you're like, whoa, we need to readjust and reevaluate.
Yep. If you have your property on the market and you're the only game in town, that's one thing.
That's great.
If 3 people drop their house on the market and they're identical to yours and they're way lower prices, then the market's
time to reevaluate.
Yeah, it's definitely time to reevaluate. Yeah.
So we would love to hear from you.
Yeah.
We're here to advise. We're here to, it's a relationship between the parties. We're not just the ones saying this is the price.
Right.
We can show you all the stats and show you the comps, the solds, and everything like that. And it's really a discussion that we have. It's not like, here's the price, we have to do this and that. It's a relationship, one that we work together on, and it's an agreement between you as the client, us as the agent, and it's an ongoing
it's a team effort. This is a team effort to get the property sold and to get you, obviously it's in our best interest to get you the best price as well. I say all the time, do you want to list your house or do you want to sell your house? Because listing it is not the same thing as selling it, and if you list it so high, going back to what we originally said, you're burning through the first 2 or 3 weeks are your best opportunity where most eyes are going to be on it. You're burning through all those potential buyers. Those people have all passed on it now. And so now you're chasing the market down by decreasing. And in the end, my experience has been more often than not, if you take that approach and that's your strategy, you end up way lower than if you just priced it right to begin with.
It can be hard, and honestly, I get the seller's position. It can be very difficult psychologically to even price it $1 under the appraised value because you feel like you're giving it away, when in fact, when you price it $1 under, let's just for example, under appraised value, you're going to capture so many more buyers that could potentially push that price up. Because we are, as we sit here in almost Thanksgiving 2023, we are seeing multiple offers.
I have a property I just put under contract in South Sarasota. We were bidding against another party, and it's still happening. Not as frequently as it did 2 years ago, but it is still happening. So yeah, I mean, if it's a great property and it's well priced, and in the end, my buyer ended up paying $10,000 over ask.
See, and that's another reason why when we're doing open houses, we do them for like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours.
Right.
Because for the seller, if it's a busy open house, it's a psychological thing. Again, it's psychological. If you have a bunch of people looking at the house, it creates that buzz and that demand for the property that could potentially push the price up. It's the same with pricing a property at $1 under appraised value. So just things to consider and discuss with your agent. Hopefully we'll be your agent.
Hopefully, yeah.
So please call us if you're interested in relocating to Sarasota or the greater Manatee, Sarasota, or Charlotte County area. We work from Anna Maria all the way down to Minnesota Key. We've got some really great listings coming up. One that I'm getting photographed this week if the rain doesn't.
Yeah, that's tough. It's tough to shoot it. Yeah.
So, but yeah, we would love to hear from you. We want you to call, text, email us. You can call me at 941-544-7690.
And you can call me anytime on my cell at 941-586-2460. Or you can find me on YouTube at Andrew Reese Luxury Real Estate. That's it. That's it.
Like,
there's nothing else.
Andrew Reese Luxury Real Estate.
It's at Andrew Reese Luxury Real Estate. That's it. Yeah. Please subscribe. I need to catch up. She has like hundreds of subscribers.
Don't listen to him.
No. Please subscribe. Please subscribe.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing.
Yeah, thank you.
Liking and sharing.